you and many thanks for joining us on a New Dawn on this Wednesday, the 3rd of July. It is 6 a.m. here in Nairobi, Kenya. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. Many thanks for joining us this morning as we give you a look at the top stories making headlines a day after Gen Z staged another round of anti-government protests in the country. We'll be giving you a look at the aftermath of those protests as well, but even as the conversation on better governance and better economy in the country goes on. An odd-year member of parliament now wants parliament dissolved, and fresh polls called for members of parliament following the invasion of the house by protesters last week. We'll be discussing that conversation. Is it time to dissolve parliament and call for fresh elections? Is it possible within the constitution? What do you think? Speak to us. The hashtag is New Dawn. You can speak to us on X at K24 Tv. Our SMS feedback line is 21222. Let's take a look at some of the news that are making headlines this morning. And parents have expressed concern about their children's safety as they resumed school yesterday following protests that continue rocking different parts of the country. And like the norm, parents yesterday were left with no choice but to escort their children to bus stations amid fare hikes. Parents have further expressed their disappointment with the Ministry of Education's failure to communicate on the way forward or on the postponement of school resumption amid protests in the country.
In the early hours of the day, calm was evident in Nairobi's central business district. As parents, hand in hand with their children, rushed towards different bus stations to ensure the children boarded PSVs safely to their schools, even as the protests rock different parts of the country.
Nilikuwa naogopa, lakini nimeweza kumleta town aende shule, lakini bado tunaogopa. Hata mimi nauliza nitarudi aje kwa nyumba, bado niko na hiyo wasiwasi, naogopa.
Nilisubiri sana nikiangalia simu nione at least kama shule imecommunicate, but until today morning si kuona any communication, so ilibidi nitoke mwenyewe nihakikishe ameenda. Juu ni candidate na wamepoteza mengi.
Watoto wetu hata kama wameenda shule pia sijui kama wataconcentrate, sababu wanajua Nairobi kuna shida. Mtoto anakuambia mama taenda aje, wewe unajitoa unamleta hapa, au obvious wanajileta, lakini sasa atungeruhusu watoto wajilete na tujui town iko aje.
Even more unfortunate for the parents, transport prices were also hiked.
Last time tulikuwa tunalipa 600, nikienda na school bus ilikuwa 400, but sasa ni 800 na magari pia kuna sana.
Tunalipanga 450, sasa ni 700.
Juu kawaida hapa mtoto kushuka pale Kagio huwa tunalipa at least 400, but ameenda na double 800.
Parents expressed their disappointment following the Ministry of Education's failure to communicate the way forward or postponement of school resumption amid protests.
Wange turuhusu hii wiki watoto wasiende, kwanza tuangalie vile kutakuwa hadi rais wetu aongee nao vijana wasikizane, ndio hii mambo ya maandamano iishe.
Some lamented over schools' failure to provide transportation or communication.
Huwa tunaenda na school bus lakini leo wakasema hakuna. In fact nimepitia Green Park nikapata hakuna basi yote. So we are here waiting for vehicles to come at least tuende shule mapema.
Other schools, however, advised parents to return their children to school only when they felt safe doing so. In Mombasa County, a majority of students were forced to walk home in crowds. This is after the administration released students early, fearing for their safety, as looters not only stole and vandalized stores, but also harassed and stole from residents. Star of the Sea Primary and Secondary School also experienced a disturbance as protesters marched close to the school near the Pandya roundabout area. Elsewhere, parents and the Board of Management of Makhoho Secondary School in Kakamega County called on the Teacher Service Commission, TSC, to cease frequent transfers of school head teachers, citing a negative impact on schools' overall performance and stability.
When a principal comes in and there is a strategic plan in place, and he leaves in a year or within a year, or in 2 years' time, implementation of that strategic plan is in trouble. And this has led this school to where it is.
There is high risk in school collapsing because of the changes. It enhances risk of strikes among our students. The transfers taints the image of the school to other principals and the general public as a whole.
The school, which currently has a population of 450 students, has a new head teacher which they say should have ample time to work and ensure there is a stable, integral and performing environment.
Despite outcry from the public for the government to cut on its budget, including salaries of members of parliament, the Salaries and Renumeration Commission, SRC, has effected its monthly remuneration for the National Assembly and the Senate for the 2024-2025 financial year. The new structure is set to give legislators a hefty salary increment, as Bentura Komboka now tells us.
As the new Salaries and Renumeration Commission monthly remuneration for state officers Gazette notice takes effect, legislators and other public servants are set to take a hefty salary rise amidst demands from Kenyans for the government to effect budget cuts and other austerity measures. In the Gazette notice published in August 2023 for the third remuneration and benefits review cycle for the 2023-2024 to 2024-2025 financial year, SRC has stated that a monthly remuneration for public officers in the National Assembly and the Senate will be effective this month of July 2024. As of from this month, members of Parliament and senators will earn 739,600 shillings, up from 725,502 shillings, with the majority and minority leaders of the National Assembly earning 800,019 shillings, up from 784,768 shillings. Speaker of the National Assembly Moses Wetangula and the Speaker of the Senate Amason Kingi will be taking home a gross salary of 1.2 million shillings, up from 1.1 million shillings, with their deputies Kathuri Murungi and Gladys Boss-Shulei taking 966,690 shillings, up from 948,261 shillings respectively. Others that are set to benefit includes governors and members of county assemblies who are set to earn 1 million shillings, up from 924,000 shillings, and 164,588 shillings, up from 144,375 shillings respectively. As Kenyans take to the street for the third week in a row, demanding, among other things, a cut in MPs' salaries, President William Ruto, in a media interview at State House on Sunday, said that he has no powers to slash the legislature's salaries.
I've seen they have also said we should reduce the salaries of MPs to 200,000 or something. Some of those things are things that are not in my power. Those are the things that we need to do, a whole of society, a whole of nation approach.
Last year, the president rejected SRC's 70% salary increment for state officers, including him and his deputy, cabinet secretaries and their secretaries, principal secretaries, the Attorney General, the Head of Public Service, Inspector General of Police, and Director General of the National Intelligence Services, citing the need to have equity in the increment plan. And following the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024, President William Ruto has intimated his intentions to borrow an extra 346 billion shillings to fill in the government deficit. As of June 2023, Kenyan debt had amounted to 70% of its GDP, contrary to the recommended threshold of 50% to the GDP for developing countries, a phenomenon that has been putting a strain on the Kenyan economy. Bentura Kwamboka, K24 TV.
The ODM party, led by the party leader Raila Odinga, says demonstrations last week are a clear indication that Kenyans have lost confidence in the government. Speaking to the press, the party's Secretary General Edwin Sifuna says the call for President William Ruto to resign is clear. The The Orange Party is now calling for the government to take full responsibility for the deaths and abductions witnessed in the country.
As protests continue to rock different parts of the nation, the ODM party now wants the government to pay close attention to the voices of the people, saying events of last week should be warning enough that Kenyans have lost hope and faith in the leadership of the country. The party has also castigated the use of excessive force on protesters, calling on the government to take full responsibility for the death occasioned by the guns during the exercising of the democratic right to picket.
What happened on the 25th of June 2024 amounted to a vote of no confidence in the Ruto regime. It is clear that this fact is totally lost on Ruto. It is reflected in his petulant proposals on how we manage our economy following the rejection of his tax bill. Instead of focusing on cutting wastage, opulence and corruption in his regime, he is hitting back at the Kenyan people with threats to cut funding for the judiciary and the county governments. We were shocked to watch the president claim on live television that only one life was lost. It tells you how out of touch with reality he is.
As discontent continues to be felt across the divide, the Orange Party says it is standing in solidarity with the Kenyan population.
The youth have given our country our last best chance. We either seize it and swim with it by implementing all their demands, or we ignore it and sink the country altogether. Number 3, that the Kenya Kwanza regime must take full responsibility for all the deaths, injuries and destruction of property arising from the violent suppression of peaceful protests. The president must publicly direct his security organs to forthwith seize the ongoing abductions, an exercise that we believe is being undertaken with his full approval and the approval of the state. He must account for and order the release of all detainees abducted by these security agencies.
They are protests that came as a result of the Finance Bill 2024. And now, to stand in solidarity with the disgruntled Kenyan population, the party says it has started the process of recalling 6 members of parliament that went against the wishes of the people.
ODM shall initiate and lead recall processes in the following constituencies in light of the current office holders' repeated violation of their sacred oath and the wishes of their electorate. Number 1, Game constituency. Number 2, Bondo constituency. Number 3, Navaholo constituency. Number 4, Kajiado Central. Number 5, Ikolomani. And lastly, Suba South in Homa Bay.
Brian Amuai, K24, Nairobi.
Journalists on the forefront to highlight yesterday's demonstrations were not spared in the push and pull between police and protesters. Joel Chacha and Ezekiel Kariuki from MediaMax, who were injured in the line of duty, are currently receiving treatment. Here's that report by Robbie Omondi.
K24's Joel Chacha, while reporting on today's protests in the CBD, was hit by a tear gas canister on his leg. It took colleagues' effort to carry him to the nearest health facility for treatment. And on Waiyaki Way, Ezekiel Kariuki was driving through a crowd of protesters, ferrying reporters, when protesters began pelting stones at the car he was driving, breaking the windshield that landed on his face, leaving him with a deep cut above his eye. Kariuki was rushed to Avenue Hospital, where he is still receiving treatment. To this end, journalists have been urged to be more vigilant while on duty, considering that there are goons masquerading as protesters, even as police have been called upon to protect journalists. Apart from journalists, there are police officers who are also injured in the line of duty. Robbie Omondi, K24.
And we wish our colleagues a quick recovery. The Kenyans will soon be forced to dig deeper to access cooking oil for their households after the government imposed a 10% import duty on crude palm oil, which is a critical component in production, not only in producing cooking oil, but also in producing margarine and other products. Now, this means also prices of soap, among others, Mobile phones also set to shoot up as the Kenya Gazette suspended the application of the common European tariff rate of 0%, applying a tax rate of 25% for 1 year. This comes as the East African Community Gazette was released, entailing measures approved on import duty rates in the EAC external tariff. Here's Linda Koskei with the details of that report.
And therefore, I will not sign.
Even before the dust settles on the recently withdrawn Finance Bill 2024 that Kenyans rejected over its burdening effect of tax to Kenyans, the 135-page document in the East African Community EAC Gazette notice is out with another round of agreed tax measures that will guide tax payments amongst the East African communities. Among the products that Kenyans will have to bear the brunt includes the price of cooking oil that will go up as the government imposes a 10% import duty on crude oil, which is a major component in making of the commodity. Other refined oils, which have been slapped with higher taxes, are refined soybean oil, RDB palm oil, sunflower oil, and refined corn oil, which Kenya has imposed a duty rate of 25% for 1 year. Diapers, which had also raised concerns in the Finance Bill 2024, is also not left out. Kenya and other EAC members will apply a duty rate of 35% for 1 year, a 10% rise from the previous tax rate. This will set stage for expensive baby diaper for most households. In a country with 119.9% mobile penetration, according to the Communications Authority, with access of mobile phones because of its affordability, the numbers might soon drop as the commodity has also been slapped with a duty rate of 25% for 1 year, and television sets will now apply a duty rate of 35% up from 25% last year. The Kenya Revenue Authority KRA will now embed the decisions into its systems to ensure that they are implemented. But this is unlikely to happen, especially after what happened with the Finance Bill 2024 as initially proposed. Linda Koskei, K24 TV.
A public-private partnership in Kenya provides female students with free sanitary pads dispensed from converted ATMs at school. The goal is to provide pads to young women from poor families so they do not miss school because of menstruation.
Often female students in Kenya who come from poor families are forced to miss school during menstruation because the price of sanitary pads out of reach. But the Kenyan aid group called Slum Sana launched an initiative at a Nairobi high school in May that provides free pads for female students. Here is how they're dispensed to students at schools. Each girl is given a special card they can use at an ATM machine that has been converted to dispense sanitary pads.
Each girl is allocated at least 8 to 16 pads per cycle, meaning every time they want to use the pads, they can be able to do that as long as they have their cards. Another thing is that if they don't have their cards, let's say they forget it at home or someone misplaces them, the teachers are given an extra card.
The Kenyan government says studies show girls from poor families miss 20% of school days each year because they do not have sanitary pads. The pad dispenser machine can hold up to 36 pads and run on solar power in remote areas, says Munira Twahir, the creator of what's called Ari the Pad ATM.
Technology is very important in solving these problems, especially in the space that we're in, which is menstrual health management. There's not a lot of hardware technology or hybrid technology to solve it. So I think this allows for students to have autonomy, so we cut off the middleman.
Officials say the initiative is being implemented in Nairobi and they hope to expand it to other parts of the country too. Quinta Atieno is one of the about 1,200 students who officials say have a pad dispenser card.
It's going to help us maintain being in school. Now you see most of our parents are not going to be required to buy the sanitary pads themselves since it's easily accessible in school.
A 2017 law, Kenya says female students who reach puberty must be provided free sanitary pads, but educators say a lack of access continues to be a big problem and affects students who cannot afford them.
Our girls suffer from low self-esteem. Low self-esteem because of those issues of begging from people. They beg from the teachers who are in school. They even come to the principal's office to say they don't have a part and they are on their menses. And we've tried to support as many as possible, but the numbers are beyond our ability.
Activists are pressing Kenya to waive taxes on sanitary pads to lower the cost. Until then, advocates say technologies like the pad dispenser help lift the burden from the girls and allow them to attend class just like other students.
The Ministry of Health has announced plans to dismantle designated centres exclusively offering treatment and care for individuals living with HIV. The initiative aims to reduce stigma and provide comprehensive health services by integrating HIV care in local health centres. And as Ben Kirira tells us on Health Beat, over 1.3 million Kenyans living with HIV will benefit from this integration, allowing them to access a broader range of healthcare services alongside other patients.
For years, persons living with HIV in Kenya have faced significant societal discrimination. The Demographic Health Survey reveals that 9% of women and 8% of men in Kenya believe HIV-positive children should not attend school with their HIV-negative peers. Additionally, 22% of women and 15% of men refuse to buy vegetables from a HIV-positive vendor. Such attitudes have led to psychological distress and reluctance among HIV patients to seek treatment from designated centers, negatively impacting their viral load.
Our HIV population is aging. They are having other diseases, mainly hypertension, diabetes, and cancer.
The National AIDS and STI Control Program, NASCOP, is spearheading the integration of HIV services into general healthcare.
Integration is really a focus on the person rather than just the virus.
The integration will leverage existing HIV platforms for other healthcare services.
The same platforms we use for HIV, trust me, they can do HPV, which is cancer screening and diagnosis. The same platforms can do much more than what we are using.
You should not be going to see a doctor to treat you for HIV-related complication and then go tomorrow to see another one to treat you for diabetes, and then the next day you just go to one person.
The integration is further expected to enhance resource utilization and provide multiple health benefits beyond HIV care.
We have about 1.3 million Kenyans who are accessing care. Over 65% are aged above 35 years. Now, that combination tells you that beyond HIV, they have other health needs. When we look at our patient information and outcomes, is you have the 50-year-old that you've asked, virally suppressed. But that same person who screened them, they have hypertension, diabetes that is not controlled. So the future of a successful intervention or integration will be the virus is controlled, the hypertension is controlled, and the diabetes is controlled.
Kenya has committed to the 2030 targets of zero new HIV infections and aims to eliminate infections among children by 2027. This integration of health services is a crucial step towards achieving these goals. Ben Kirira, K24, Health Beat.
That report by Ben Kirira brings us to a break on New Dawn. When we come back, we'll take a look at us making headlines on the dailies on the 3rd of July 2024. Do stay with us.
The biggest reggae and rhythm show ever on Kenyan television. You have a ganja man and you wanna